Oh hey, didn't see you there. Guys, I have some bad news. You see, I was recently diagnosed with a debilitating disease. It's not contagious, and it's quite common, and you can pass it on. But, regardless, it is going to be a heavy burden. And eventually I will die from it. It's called having a life. Now, it's not hopeless. In fact, my doctor wrote me a prescription to fix me having a life. It says to never bathe, sleep more than 8 hours, and to take in 12 to 24 anime episodes a day. See, it says right here. Binging, the icon of the god of procrastination. The act of continually consuming a series of arts like it's a Vegas buffet is a relatively new phenomenon in this era of hard physical media, and an all too common pastime for this generation of instant gratification. Before the advent of streaming, the internet, or even hands-on methods like Blu-rays and DVDs, the most binging you could probably do was just taking a bunch of books, like some sort of sad human library. Man, this is a weird series. I do not understand this story at all. Wish I spoke Chinese. Even when we moved past the Stone Age, the options for marathoning personal media were limited to music, as records gradually became a common thing you could buy for a quarter and a stick of gum. Or if you were somehow fortunate enough, you had access to a projector and film strips, and you could watch flickering pictures with a loud roar being the primary dialogue. Every so often, you could maybe catch a special multi-hour presentation on the radio or television, but aside from that, you were kept to the whims of limited tech. But by the 70s, that changed as movies and certain shows were formatted to Laserdisc, which opened up the market for publishers to sell you the opportunity to look on your own free time, a practice very much alive to this day. And so we're going to be taking a look at the act of binge watching, and more specifically, binge watching anime, and what makes it so similar and different to other forms of media. And take note that this is going to be a biased topic considering the content of my channel, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. Or maybe a whole handful. Hell, you might have to go salt mining after this. The first place to start in looking into this topic is the experience itself. Binge watching isn't a new hobby, and you can barely even call it a hobby in the same way you can call doing your taxes a hobby. You either do it or you don't. Like, the act of binge watching is more of a byproduct of the real benefit of actually watching and consuming the media. Just like how letting the government know how much money you have is a byproduct of trying not to go to jail. But with that said, dedication to laziness is an admirable effort in itself, a lesson every kid should learn. While not particularly productive, binging shouldn't have to be. It leans more as an outlet to allow people to relax in their limited free time, unless they're putting off doing their chores. I should probably be doing my taxes right now. What month is it anyway? Now, it's a common diversion today with the rise of the subscription model, but back then, you could really only rely on physical media to get you through the weekend, where you would buy, borrow, rent, or miscellaneous what you decide to gamble your time and money on. When it came to anime, the choices were a tad more limited, but since the dark ages of 2004, we've come a long way to make our watching habits more or less productive, with companies like YouTube and Netflix making going outside a thing of the past. And that new digital custom has ever since taken over the instant entertainment industry, with numerous sites, subscriptions, and technology to lead the way of loafing. And anime was steady in making its way into the zeitgeist in the meantime, with Crunchyroll, Funimation, and the 7 Seas assisting with the newish weeb fad. And where was I at the infancy of this craze? Well, my neighbor's broadband siphoning butt, when not siphoning the neighbor's broadband, was probably reading, like some sort of sad baby human library. Yeah, I didn't really grow up with cable or high-speed internet, so I usually resorted to dial-up to get connected, which anyone around for the turn of the century would tell you isn't really good for binging. I mean, I watched what I could on the lawless land of early YouTube, so maybe 3 episodes in 2 hours, but that was the extent of it. But what was I watching anyway to make that wait worth it? Tenchi Muyo, of course, perfect for a 7-year-old, alongside these other kid-friendly shows. Nah, I wasn't that #cool TM, unlike today. I was watching Pokemon. Yeah, Pokemon was really the only show I actively tried to binge in my younger years. Whenever I couldn't load up the latest 240p Diamond and Pearl episodes on YouTube, I would sometimes just go to the library to borrow some of the tapes I've seen hundreds of times already, some of which I still have today. Oh shit, I was supposed to return these. Aside from that, I really didn't have much experience in binging in the formative years as I was busy having a life. See, it's a pre-existing condition. It wasn't until late middle school where I really got into anime, as the show I would marathon was Naruto, so much so that it cut into the time I was supposed to sleep. But it was fine, I made it through during class. Hear that, impressionable teens? You'll get plenty of rest during school, so go ahead and find out how Rock Lee keeps up with Gaara in the middle of the night. It's hype, and there's no downsides. And it was around this time where, moving on from Naruto, I basically adopted that habit. So many shows at my disposal, and luckily easy to digest because I was a dumb kid who was looking to be distracted without being trained in media literacy. Is This a Zombie, High School of the Dead, Busou Rinkin, Ah My Buddha? I didn't say all of them were good, but they did entertain me. Except for Ah My Buddha, because that's an actual pile of garbage. At that point in my life, binging was sort of training me to familiarize myself with Japanese culture, storytelling, and even the cadence of the language. It was definitely a quantity over quality deal during those times, but regardless, the mass consumption of the media did prepare me for more mass media consumption. It's like an Ouroboros of degeneracy, akin to the feeling of misery and manufactured hate by modern Star Wars fans. From then on, I got into actual good shows and kept at them at a better pace than normal, but arguably a worse pace than healthy. Cowboy Bebop, Code Geass, Fullmetal Alchemist. Yeah, they're basic, but understand that as a fledgling weeb in training, not only were they new experiences for me, but they also eased me into thoughts on philosophy and themes while also being serious and enjoyable to take all in. And that's why I think I get this personal idea of binging not being all that necessarily bad. Sure, you can use your time wisely and more efficiently, especially as you get older, but when you do find that series, then you'll find that you'll be in a place in the story where you never thought before, and there's just something magical about being swept up in that sort of escapism, even if it is sometimes misguided. But there lies in part of the issue of binging: time. Time is a valuable resource we all need to effectively maintain in order to stay functioning, and that's a lot harder to do when you got the next episode of Hot Girls Doing Hot Things on your brain. Spoilers, guys. They're going to be doing hot things next time, so don't lose any sleep over that. It was certainly easier for me as a student, as accessing a show like Hunter x Hunter was as simple as dredging through the ambition of Oda Nobunaga was hard. But now, as an adult with that debilitating disease I mentioned earlier, binging is more of an occasional event rather than a norm every day. It's in this combination of constant releases, a plethora of streaming services, and time constraints as an adult that binging is something to be followed through as a plan rather than a spur-of-the-moment decision. Take a show like The Boys for example, where they release multiple episodes, or a whole season, but remain popular for their respective seasons as their viewers' watching habits were easy to accommodate per their own marketing. It's partially why there's the common trope of not finding anything to watch on Netflix or Crunchyroll in free time, because there's nothing straight on your mind of what you're in the mood for, versus where The Boys' planned release schedule helped maintain its momentum. Or for an anime comparison, the watch list, which I've already covered and still has its faults. After all, you still need to have a sort of mood and idea of what you want, but it is somewhat of an effective planner nonetheless, as you mark the shows way ahead of time and can just jump into them. And this is where anime has a massive advantage and disadvantage in the media wars. Not many other forms of media have a dedicated system and website to just listing out your shows. And that's partially because anime is just so abundant in numbers and styles that the artist's takeover is a topic to cover in and of itself. So you could argue that binging anime has never been easier, as you could just put on Kill la Kill or Excel World or Slayers or pure garbage at the click of a mouse and a check off the list. But on that same coin, there's a lot to rifle through. Decision fatigue feels doubled, sometimes tripled when it comes to anime for this reason, and even more so, you only have so much time to indulge, so deciding on a bad show you gambled on only feels worse. Binging is an odd hobby, as it's not definitive. It can be very time consuming and, depending on what you take in, time wasting. And it feels as though that there's a lot that goes into what is essentially doing nothing, that it sometimes even feels like a chore. Some people even binge watch entire shows just to make a video essay not even on the shows, but binging itself. Imagine those losers. But after all of that, you can't deny the presence of the act of binging, as it's just as easy to get swept in them. Whether if it's superhero shows, soap operas, whole film franchises, and of course, anime. In my early college days, I binged One Piece, and those are some of my favorite moments of those times. Mainly because I was avoiding responsibility, but also because it gave me thoughtful entertainment like how I adapted from the even earlier years. Even now, as I binge shows for videos and a whole month's worth of reviews, while it can be demoralizing in an existential sense, I also find some comfort in that occasional escapism. And with that key word, if you do it occasionally, I don't think it has to be that complicated to disregard. Unlike taxes. But now, if you'll excuse me, with all of that healthy medicine that was given to me by myself, I think I'm ready to go back into society to work as a functioning person who just so happens to have a, life. I guess the first thing to do is to, go outside and, return these. But then again, I am feeling a bit sick right after that thought, so